Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. What a game. I have been playing this for the past 4 weeks. I'm 130 hours in and I have really, really loved playing it. It's one of those games that I didn't really know what to expect. I hadn't played the previous version of the game. I play pretty much every open world game that comes out, and I have done for the past 25, 30 years. And more recently, there's not been that many that have really impressed me. Definitely not as much as Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. In this review, I'm going to go through the good and the bad elements of the game and talk through my experience of it and the things that you need to know if you're planning on picking it up. So first of all, stories and quests. The storyline to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is so detailed. There's so much going on. The world is massive, but the actual characterization and all of the quests that you get and the side quests are so well put together. It's a really well developed game when it comes to storyline. The main quests are fantastic. It just spreads out so long and so many things are going on all the time with loads and loads of really well developed characters that you engage with in a way that you can become friends with them, you can upset them, and that impacts how the game pans out later on. And there's some really, really fun characters. There's some funny characters, there's some really cool characters, and there's some really interesting, mysterious characters you get throughout the way. And I'm not really a massive fan of storyline in games. Most of the time when I play big open world games, I get a little bit bored of the storyline and I just end up going through the process of side quests and finishing the main missions. But I really did get heavily involved with the storyline in this, and I really liked most of the characters that are part of the game. And that goes in all the way to the side quests as well. A lot of big open world games, the side quests can get a little bit monotonous, the same sort of things going over and over, the same sorts of characters that just keep cropping up. In this, the side quests really are quests in their own right. You don't tend to find the same side quests over and over again like you do with games like Assassin's Creed. You find that everything's interesting. When you're walking along the road and you find a side character, they normally have an interesting quest which you haven't seen before as part of the earlier game. And those characters, even the side characters, are just really well put together. It's quite exciting to find a new one and work out what it is they want and have a conversation with them. The conversations are also really good. The script writing in the stories and the side quests is really, really impressive. And you actually find that you want to find out more about these characters and how they impact the whole of the story. The impact of the way that your decisions are made. So when you speak to various characters, you can decide on how you want to interact with them. It's not just the speech that impacts that, it's the things that you do in the world. So stealing, fighting people, that all has a massive impact on your interactions with all of the characters throughout the whole game, until a bit later on when it doesn't seem to impact it as much as it does in the earlier stages. I suppose the biggest part of the stories and quests is that non-repetitiveness. It all seems new, especially when you get to the second map. You suddenly realise how big this game is and how much exploration there is across the whole game. So the stories and the quests in this are absolutely fantastic. I put them up on the level with something like Red Dead Redemption 2. So speaking a little bit more about the attention to detail, everything you do in this game has an impact on the overall story, on how easy it is for you to complete quests, and the way that you interact with all of the different people and what you do. And you really start to pay attention to the things that you're doing and how you're interacting with people. That goes down to so much detail. So things like if you are stealing things from shops, people will notice that you have been suspicious. If you don't get caught, they will still notice that you were wandering around, and they may still get the guards to come and investigate you because they think that you're probably the likely culprit of the crimes. It's a really smart way of doing it, and you have to pay a lot of attention to who's watching you and all of the interactions that you're having before you do anything like stealing things, because it does come back to play on you, and you have to keep saving the game a lot because sometimes somebody will spot you which you didn't realise, and then you will either lose a load of money or you have to run away. Neither of which you want to do if you're trying to build a reputation and impact the other things that are going to happen in the game. There's also loads of ways to solve problems as well. There's lots of quests where you need to go and collect something, or you need to go and find something. A lot of the time that's done by sneaking around, but you can just fight people and get through it that way. You can also find different routes to get to places, and you can also, the attention to the detail with the NPCs, you can trick them. You can throw things around. You can cause things to happen that diverts their attention away from you. It's a really, really smart way of doing it. And you can definitely shape the way how you play this game to an extent. And the stolen goods is a really interesting mechanic within the game, because if you steal a lot of things from a person or a shop and you wear those things, people will notice and you will be accosted by the guards because you've done that. So you have to be quite strategic about how you steal things. Like many other games, things like Fallout, it is quite a lucrative way to get money by stealing things and then selling them off, but it's quite hard to do, especially earlier in the game. So you have to be very smart about what you're taking, and you also have to store it away for a while until you can eventually sell it to certain people, because they will know that it's stolen. You either won't make much money or they just won't bite off you at all. The open world map. Now this is really, really impressive. There are actually 2 big maps within this game, and they are enormous. There's so much going on. When I first started playing the game, I was a little bit worried that because it's all set in a very similar setting, there's a lot of forest, it's very green, it's not the sort of open world game where you go to different areas, something like Horizon Zero Dawn where you go to completely different bits of open world area. It's all very much set in the same place, and I was worried when I started playing at it that it was going to get a bit monotonous and I was going to get a bit bored of the open world scenario. I absolutely didn't. It's so well put together. There's so many cities and towns that you can go to. There are so many little buildings that you can find in the middle of nowhere. You also have Gutenberg, which is the main city, and that is enormous. It's far bigger than any of the other cities within the game, or towns within the game. And it takes a long time to get your head around the way that city is built, where you go and what you can find in there. There's so many shops. It becomes a really important place to go if you're selling things, because when you get later on and you're getting a lot more goods, you need to find places to sell them. And the little towns that you can't really sell much than those. So Gutenberg becomes a place that you go back to over and over again, but it's so impressive, especially considering at a certain point in the game you'll actually find an underground passageway labyrinth which leads you to all across the city, and you can use that as a very, very smart way to get into different buildings and complete some of the missions as well. So it's a fantastic open world map, and I'd like to see over time more things get added to it. Another big thing I like about it is the skill development. So as you develop within the game, you start off and it is very difficult. The learning curve in this game is quite tough from the beginning. Later on it becomes much easier, but it's largely due to skill development. So you basically get better at things in the game if you do them. So if you do a lot of archery, you'll just get better at archery, and you'll eventually be given the opportunity to add skill points. And these skill points give you the option to choose from a selection of different bonuses that you get as part of growing that skill area, which can be things like just being better at firing the arrow. It can mean that you are less likely to be killed in combat, or you get stronger if your energy goes down. So you can pick and choose which of those you want based on your play style. So it's a very nice way to develop the character. It's not a simplistic way of developing it. It takes a bit of time to really understand what you're going to go for and what the benefits of each of those things are. In fact, some of the bonuses don't seem important early on, but later on you realize that they're actually really, really good, especially when you've decided how you're going to play with your character. So fantastic skill development system. Graphics are really, really nice. I played it on PS5 and it looked great across the whole of the game. Really nice cutscenes, really nice building development, really nice forests. As I said, I was a little bit worried that I'd get a bit bored of some of the forest areas and the grass and fields areas, but they all seem different. If you go into a forest, you almost instantly know it's a different forest than one you've been in before, and there are a lot of forests in this game. And that really comes down to the way that graphics have been made and the beautiful way that the designers have created this world, so that it's actually constantly an interesting place to be. And then when you go into the night, or when it's dusk, it feels like a slightly different game as well. And the way that works, especially when you're looking like golden hour when the sun is going down, it just looks absolutely fantastic. Finally, ongoing game development. So since I've been playing the game, they did release an update, a really big update, which added various things, including fixes, but also the ability to go to a tailor shop and change the look of your character, which you couldn't do up until that point. And that's a nice little feature to add onto it. But it looks like the developers are going to be continuing to do this, and quite often with big open world games, I tend to play them until completion and then I put them down and I very rarely pick them up again. What I like about this game is that I think it's going to continue to develop with new levels coming out and new ways to play it based on the new development, which I think is a really nice thing to have and will definitely force me to keep playing the game. Okay, so on to the bad bits of this game, or things that I didn't really like as much as I could have. First of all, the combat. The combat is an interesting one, and when I started playing the game, I hadn't played the previous version, I really struggled to get my head around the combat. It felt a little bit like something like Skyrim to me, where the combat mechanics weren't that impressive, and I was sort of slashing around, getting beaten. The learning curve in this game is really, really tough. The first few hours of the game, I was just getting killed left, right and centre. I couldn't fight anybody at all, and I thought that was down to purely the way that I was fighting, but it is a massive part of the skill progression in your character. That means that quite early on, it is just hard to fight people because you're just not strong enough. You just don't have enough skills, and the damage you take is just really, really high. Also, there's a massive thing with armor in this game as well. So if you're not wearing armor, or you've got very, very poor armor, you will get beaten quite easily because you only take a few hits to go down. So it's a very steep learning curve with the combat. And what I did find with the combat quite early on is that I couldn't quite get my head around what the tutorials were telling me in order to actually fight people. There's a bit of a tricky combat system where you can move the sword or the weapon that you've got to different positions, and has an impact on the fight, which is really hard to get your head around at the start of the game. Later on, as I got more weapons, as I got better armor, you start to really pick it up a bit more. But in reality, I did find that over the whole course of the game, the major thing that impacted my ability to fight people was my armor and my weapons. My actual skills from fighting didn't really progress that much. I just sort of learned how to hit people the right way. I wasn't using a lot of the special moves that came out or the training that people gave me to fight. I basically just got stronger, and it became considerably easier to do combat. So I didn't really enjoy combat that much in this game, and I think it needs to be developed a bit more. The other thing I had a bit of a problem with this game is the weapons. I like the range of weapons that are in the game. I like the fact that you can decide which weapons you want to learn to fight with. I went for the easy option initially on. I had a one-handed sword and a shield, which seems to be the most flexible way of fighting and the easiest one to get to grips with. Some of the other weapons are a lot harder to use, especially early on in the game, especially things like pole arms and stuff like that, which are very good for reach, but they're very difficult to use when it comes to defending and moving quickly. What I did find is that I capped out my weapons quite early on. So definitely within the first half of the game, I had the most powerful weapons that I finished the game with. And as a result, I found that I wasn't that excited about ever picking up weapons because I always had the best weapons on me. And the only thing that I really changed later on in the game was my armor, because the weapons that I got early on were absolutely fine. So the weapons are really good and there's loads of options for them, but there's nothing that exciting to pick up. Even by doing special missions to get weapons, they still weren't as good as the weapons that I had already. So I'd like to see some more weapons coming up that offer a bit more when it comes to fighting and give you something to aim for. Another thing about weapons, the handguns. Now, I realise that the handguns in the game are a bit of a fun add-on. It's set long before handguns became commonplace, and they're almost like an experimental weapon within the game. They're really hard to use, and I know a lot of people like them because they're just fun, and you really using a handgun that is basically a cannon in your hand takes a long time to use and reload. So if you're actually using them as a proper weapon, they're quite hard to use. They're more of a fun weapon, but I did really struggle to work out if mine was even working. I couldn't seem to hit anyone at any point for quite a long time until I went to people point blank. So they are a bit of a funny weapon, but I do understand they're meant to be a bit of fun. Crafting, I struggled with a bit. I'm not a massive crafter in games. I get a bit bored if I'm constantly having to craft things. And one of the things I didn't enjoy very much in this game was alchemy, where you have to create all of these different potions. There's certain potions that you use quite a lot, especially in the earlier game, things that you use to get more energy back. And I did find it annoying to have to remake those all the time. I sort of wanted to be able to craft for a period and then eventually learn a way to do it quicker. But that doesn't seem to happen. And if you do want to go through that process of potions, you do end up crafting a lot. I found that I didn't really do any crafting after a certain period. I just went and stole them off everyone, which is a much easier way to do it. And it didn't have any impact on me because I wasn't really crafting anything. Even some of the main missions that need you to use or craft certain items, I tended to just steal those as well because I couldn't be bothered to craft. Another thing that I would like to see improved in the game is the map seems a bit empty in some points. So if you are the sort of person like me who likes to go across the whole of the map, just explore different areas, find if there's anything in a field or in a forest. When I played Oblivion originally, I remember there was a point where I was just wandering around and I thought I'd found everything. And I was just in this forest and I found this whole new town with dozens of new tasks to do. I didn't really find anything like that in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. There's big parts of the map which are covered in forest that I wandered around for ages and I didn't really find much in there. And I was hoping to get something, or at least explore and find some person who would give me a quest. But there's quite a lot that's empty on the map at the moment. So I would definitely like to see more stuff added into those areas to make it a little bit more fulfilling if you're the sort of person that just likes wandering around aimlessly and finding new things. Another thing I wasn't too keen on is the power scaling of the game. When I started playing it, I really enjoyed the fact that it was hard, and it made me feel a little bit like Elden Ring or something like that, where I thought I'd have to invest a lot of time into it, getting better, into learning how to fight in order to finish the game. And that happened for about maybe 20 hours or so until I started to get my head around it. I started to get more weapons. By the end of the game, I was way overpowered. I was fighting bunches of 10, 15 people and not really struggling with it because I knew how to fight them and I knew how to move around quite easily. I wanted it to be harder at certain points. I know there's a harder mode coming, but there was a growth issue where I got very overpowered very quickly. And now I've completed the game and I've gone back in to just have a play around. I can't really find anyone to fight that is actually that enjoyable to fight. Most of the people I'm killing quite easily, so I definitely looking forward to that harder mode coming up. But also it would be nice to see more powerful enemies coming up as well that are much harder to fight. And it's a problem I have with most open world games, but I'd really like to see that develop because I want another game that's a bit more like Elden Ring when it comes to that hard setting. Another thing is stealth missions. So there's an element of stealth in this game, but it's not very well developed. Stealth is okay to a point, so if you're using stealth in the open world or if you're using it on smaller missions, it's quite useful to do. But the game does throw in a couple of really big stealth missions and they're not very well developed. What I found about the stealth missions that you are forced to do is it's almost like an old style ninja game where there's a whole forest that's full of people and you have to watch and wait for people to wander past, then creep past them and hide in some hedgerows. But the problem is it's at night and you can't really see a lot. So most of the time I was just getting trapped between hedges and then not being able to get out. There were certain points where I was just getting spotted and I didn't know why I was getting spotted. It just took ages for me to get through those missions. And unlike some stealth missions where you feel like you're developing the skills of stealth and you get this nice feeling of success when you've done it, it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like I've finally managed to get through it after loads and loads of saves. I just got lucky and managed to find the thing that I was meant to get to. It didn't feel like I'd got really good at stealth. And I think that's something that the game needs to develop if it wants to be a stealth game as well as all the other things that it does. Finally, money. So much like how the weapons and the power level that you have towards the later stages of the game, money becomes quite meaningless later on. I actually found that I was just acquiring money into the second half of the game very, very easily, and I didn't really need to spend it. There wasn't a lot to spend it on. I had the most powerful armor and weapons that were available, so I was just accruing money all over, and I didn't really have anything to spend it on. So I'd just go and buy random stuff all the time that I didn't really need. So there's definitely a thing with money where I think it could be made harder to get, or at least a little bit into the game it could become harder to get, because at the start you never get any money. It's really hard, and you're just selling stuff. You don't really get enough to buy anything at the start, which I really, really like, because it means that you really got to focus on the crafting. You've got to focus on all of the ways that you're going to try and get money, either that's stealing or anything like that. So you really learn your skills by doing that, because you want the money to buy the things. But later on you sort of lose that interest in it, because you could just steal somebody's clothes or armor from who's tried to attack you in a field, and suddenly you can get yourself 3,000 coin just for doing that. So it becomes very easy. It's always pointless to start using crafting or anything like that to get money, because the currency doesn't mean a lot later on in the game. So that's it. That's my overview of the good and the bad of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. It's a fantastic game. I would give it 9 out of 10, and it's very close to getting a 10 out of 10 when you compare it with other open world games out there. It's so fun. It's so big. It looks great. I love the fact that it's still getting developed all the time, and I think it's going to go down as one of the top open world games that's been out for the past decade. It's really worth playing, whether you're into medieval games. I'm not a massive medieval game fan, but I found myself really getting immersed in that world. Even started reading up some on some sort of medieval stories and history, because I got quite into it based on the world setting that had been created. But I do think it's fantastic, and I think that a lot of the things that I would class as bad in this game, I think they're things that are probably going to get developed over time, and in maybe a year's time it will be an even better game, and definitely a 10 out of 10 game. So well worth giving a go. If you liked it, give me a comment below. If you didn't like it, let me know as well, and tell me if it's for a different reason than the ones that I picked in this list. Thanks a lot for watching. Speak to you soon.